morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're going to give people just a few more minutes to get in and then we'll get started. All right, everyone, for the sake of time, we will go ahead and get started. And then as people hop on, we'll add them to our group. I just want to say thank you so much for being here this morning, for taking the time to participate in our advisory board meeting, and also for being willing to commit your time and also, share your feedback on our programs. Really appreciate everything that you guys do for us. If you haven't met me before, my name is Michaela Robinette, and I am the coordinator of the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network at the North Carolina Agro-Medicine Institute. So I grew up in Eastern North Carolina on a Century farm right outside of Tarboro, where my family historically was a row crop operation. And then in the late 90s, we transitioned to beef cattle. And then we also owned and operated a slaughter and processing facility in Johnston County for 12 years. So I grew up in agriculture and kind of always knew that this was the world that I wanted to be in, but didn't know how to get there and didn't know in what capacity I wanted to be able to serve farmers. And so I found the Agro-Medicine Institute in 2019 after some health journeys with my granddad as a result of his time on the farm. And once I found the Agro-Medicine Institute, I knew that I wanted to be stuck on like glue, and needed to get here as fast as I could. So I've been with the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network since 2023. So I've been here just over a year, where I started as the resource specialist, and then transitioned to the coordinator in April of this year. And so I just would love to, I would love to just hear from you all, what exactly what your name is, where you're coming from today, and then what is one thing that you would like to get out of today's meeting. And we can either go around the group or you can put it in the chat if that's more efficient for you. Roberta, do you want to start us off?
Thank you very much, certainly. Good morning, all. So by now, this probably feels redundant to a lot on this call, but I'm Roberta Bellamy. I'm a medical family therapist. I'm licensed marriage and family therapist. I specialize in agricultural behavioral health, even when it was not a thing. So I've been doing this work professionally for about 10 years. I am from a multi-generational farming background and grew up during the turbulent 80s. And my father was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. And we have other family members with severe mental health issues, and yet we keep farming. So growing up in that environment kind of drove me to do what I do today. So for about 10 years, I've worked in the field, so to speak. Farm families will generally call me, and eventually I got connected to a member organization they were all a part of that oversaw H-2A labor workforce. So I also work with farm workers. So I work with whoever is on that farm families, farm workers, and anyone that is important to those individuals to help ease stress and address any mental health concerns.
Awesome. Thanks, Roberta. Ed, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's fine. Hey guys, my name's Ed Hunt. I'm down at UNC Pembroke. I work really closely with all farmers and what agriculture is, preferably those that are in the underserved and socially disadvantaged group that's here in the region. I am a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. I also came from a small farm. Both grandfathers and my dad were tobacco farmers here in the region. So I've been around the state chasing education and finally landed back home. So thankful to be here, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Susan, do you want to introduce?
Good morning. I'm Susan Jakes. I lead the program in Community and Rural Development, NC State Extension. I'm really pleased to be here. I have a small grant with the Tennessee SAGE project, the Southern Ag Exchange, I guess is what it stands for. And we've been doing farm worker work and farm stress work. I've worked with Robin for years. In doing mental health first aid and doing kind of rural resiliency, like it's hard for me to say, work around the state. But I'm really pleased to see what this has grown into, and I'm glad to kind of meet you all and see many of you all again that are engaged in this work.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Juan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Juan Allen. I'm a community coordinator for farm worker community coordinator for ECU Health, and we are doing work with them in behavioral health. We are doing training in Spanish from mental health first aid, trying to get in the calls for everything referral for any cases. And now we are expanding to do CPR at the farms and doing a lot of stuff. We already have several farms already, and we continue working. So now we are preparing screen cancer with the ECU Brody School. We're going to start seeing for farm workers only. So we're going to start doing several of those. And we're going to start, this is the third Sunday that we are doing that. So if you see me a little bit busy here, it's because we are communicating right now. So I'm happy to be here, guys.
Thanks, Juan. Beth, do you want to go?
Yep. Good morning, Beth Pugh-Farrell. I'm an agricultural program development coordinator at the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and so proud of the work that the Agri-Medicine Institute has done to help enhance agriculture and our farmers and farm workers across the state, and really glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Stacy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Jones. I work for NC State Cooperative Extension. I have some interest in mental health and in farming, so this was the perfect combination of both, and I'm very happy to serve. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. And then Michael.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Showman. I'm a rural sociologist. and William Neal Reynolds, Distinguished Professor in the Department of Agriculture and Human Sciences at NC State. I've been doing research on mental health, stress, and survival of Black and limited resource farmers ever since the 1980s. I've also done work on occupational health and safety. I think I go back to the original founding of the Agri-Medicine Institute. Currently, along with Dr. Andy Smolsky, who's now at Penn State, we've been working on the Applied Research Network on the FARSAN South Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. Thank you. Thank you for all for being here, and thank you for all that you do to help farmers in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Thank you all for doing those introductions. I think it's great that we have such a wide variety of people on this call and wide variety of backgrounds, but we're still able to come together to serve the single purpose. It just makes my heart happy. So just want to go over our agenda for today. So we're going to hear from Dr. Spence and from myself about some of the current work that's going on both at the Institute and in the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. I'm also going to be sharing with you all some of the things that we've discussed within our team as kind of what we want the future of this program to look like and what we are anticipating our future goals to be. But then I also want to hear from you all. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms to do small group discussions about what we should be prioritizing moving forward, what programs are you seeing the most impact on the ground, and which ones we should be focusing on expanding more. And then I would love for us to share this information out. I really value y'all's feedback and want to make sure that the work that we're doing at the Institute and with FARSAN is reflective of the needs of farmers, and never want us to work in a silo and assume that we know what that is. And so that's just kind of the outline for today. If you haven't joined a meeting with me before, I am very okay with interruptions and dialogue as the meeting progresses. So don't feel like you have to hold any questions or comments for a later time. Just either put them in the chat or raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. And when we get to a stopping point, happy to answer any questions or have any dialogue as that progresses. So the first thing that we're going to do is I would like to introduce Dr. Alyssa Ramsey Spence to provide an interim director update.
Sorry, y'all, lost my tab. So good morning. I'm extremely excited to be here with you this morning. Most of you know me as the Associate Director at the North Carolina Agri-Medicine Institute. My background is also part of the family farm. I grew up in the western part of North Carolina in a very, very small isolated town in Madison County. And so I always love hearing everyone's introductions because I pick up a little snippet of everyone's story. And so I always try to add a little something to mine. And so my family we participated in greenhouse production, but before that, we were actually a tobacco farm, early tobacco. And during the buyout, we were able to convert that to the greenhouse production operation. And so I was an agriculture teacher for several years, and then I was an extension agent for several years before joining the Institute as associate director. And as many of us know, Robin, our former director, has retired and is enjoying the next chapter of life. She's still staying very busy. But in that interim period, I am filling in as director. As we move through that period, we're hoping that we're actually going to have a co-interim director arrangement, but that person has not been officially announced yet, and we hope to do that in the coming weeks. We've had a lot of questions about that. So has been identified, just waiting on that official appointment with ECU. So stay tuned for that. In other news, we are welcoming a lot of different leadership to the Institute. You know, in addition to this advisory board, we also have our board of partners, our board of directors, and our Institute members. And so just to talk a little bit about each one of those, you know, our board of directors is really that steering committee for the entire Institute. The Institute is a partnership between, you know, 3 formal universities, including our 2 land grants, NC State and NC A&T, and then East Carolina. And so we have representatives from each one of those partner universities on that board, but then we also have representatives from the healthcare community and the agriculture community. And so today, actually later, we're going to welcome 9 new board members on and thank our separating board members for their years of service. Most have been serving on the board for multiple terms, and our terms are 3-year appointments. So I know they're excited to be able to focus on some other things, and we're excited to welcome those new members to the board. We're also going to be welcoming our new medical director. In the past, that position is an ex officio position on our board, but it's always been a person at East Carolina. And so we're actually going a slightly different route this time, and we're going to be welcoming Dr. Dawn Cavanis as our medical director, and she is with Atrium Health. So we'll have an external person serving on that committee, and we welcome the thoughts and feedback from her and her guidance on the board. So just to quickly mention the other boards that we have, the Board of Partners is more geared toward people in the agricultural community, but we certainly welcome people in academia and healthcare and really anyone, but it's an informal space where we can come together and talk about issues similar to this committee, but from a more broad perspective. And then finally, we have our institute members, which is primarily geared toward researchers. So if there's anyone here who is interested in becoming an institute member, shoot me an email. I think that's all I got, Michaela.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any questions for Dr. Spence before we move on? Okay, awesome. And if you ever need anything from Alyssa, Alyssa, do you want to put your email in the chat just so that way everybody has it for sure? Thanks. So now we're going to move on into talking about the program deliverables that have taken place over the past year. Some of this data comes from starting in July. Some of it comes from starting in September, but I'll clarify that moving forward. And again, if there's ever any questions, just feel free to call out. And I kind of grouped these by the different types of programs that we have going on. And so we're going to start with an overview of our peer support programs that are happening at the Institute. There are several different types of peer support programs that happen. The one that I feel like is most well known is our Farmer to Farmer program. So in Farmer to Farmer, we have formal mentor and mentee matches. And so what happens is folks will say, hey, I'm willing to serve as a mentor to another farmer in the state of North Carolina. They submit an application. They undergo a training that was actually created by Dr. Nicole Cox, who is a school counselor in Onslow County. Her son is actually one of this year's state FFA officers, so very involved in agriculture across all levels. And so once these mentors undergo this training, they've received their certifications in either mental health first aid or some other form of mental health literacy training, as well as undergoing Dr. Cox's training. They sit in our bank of mentors as they await a match. So then on the flip side of that, a farmer can say, hey, I'm looking for a formal mentor, somebody that really understands what I'm going through and somebody that can help walk through this journey with me. And then we will pair the mentor with somebody that matches their background. We try to never put a mentor and mentee pairing from the same or a neighboring county because we recognize that there is a level of competition that happens between farmers, and we want to make sure that those pairings feel comfortable being able to share their experiences and share what's going on without ever feeling like their dirty laundry is going to be aired in the church pew, right? So as of today, we have 21 trained farmer mentors that are awaiting a mentee match. We updated our training in June of 2023. So all of those 21 trained farmers have undergone either a version of that training or the updated training. There is currently no formal pairings that meet on a regular basis that we have been made aware of. However, we know that these trained farmer mentors are using this information that they've learned within their communities in an informal basis. And so it is something that we are still wanting to train farmer mentors, and we still want these folks to request mentees, but we are still seeing good in that, even if there is no formal pairings. The other peer program that we have that is currently active is our Women in Agriculture program. This is a lot more case-based in the sense that communities or regions can request a Women in Agriculture support group to be held in their community. So how this has been shown in the past and how this work has been done in the past is communities typically try to organize 1 or 2 day regional events. So we think of having like a retreats that take place over the course of a day, where we can bring in speakers, where we can do an activity, where we work with the farm women to help navigate some of their stresses. We might have support group meetings happening within that, but typically a much more event style. We are seeing now a shift to a more regularly meeting taking place. So we have one active group that serves Forsyth and surrounding counties. And this group of women meet once a month, either virtually or in person at somebody's home, where they share a meal and really just get to talk with each other about what's going on across the day. I've been able to join this group when it meets virtually, and it has anywhere between 8 and 15 women that meet each time. There is now a pending group that will serve Pitt and Greene County. And so we are looking forward to being able to support them as they move forward and decide what's going to best serve those women specifically. And so moving on from our peer support, we then have our community support programs. And so the first one that I'd like to touch base on is our Farm Health Connectors. So the Farm Health Connector is a similar model to the Faith Health Connector program that is operated out of Atrium Health. So these Farm Health Connectors are done in partnership with Atrium Health, and they serve Anson County, Duplin County, Pitt County, Robeson County, and Wilkes County. So there is one for each county, except Pitt has a married couple serving that community. And has been doing amazing work with them. And each of these Farm Health Connectors have really taken the approach of doing what's best for their individual communities. We haven't really seen a lot of overlap in work across each of the counties. For example, Anson, the person who is serving in that role, he is a previous NRCS agent. Now he is the head of the GIS services for the county. So he works with farmers in a little bit more formal way. His wife is an agriculture teacher, and so he has seen a lot of his work taking place by meeting with farmers, doing the GIS work, but then also working with FFA and 4-H within the county and serving the community in that manner. On the flip side of that, the Pitt County couple that is doing this work, they operate an agritourism program. So they invite people into their farm to do leadership retreats. And so a lot of their work comes from people that are visiting their farm to provide services. And so that's just 2 examples of what's happening with that. We did receive a no-cost extension and are working through trying to finalize the details of that that will carry this work through August of 2025. And again, this work has been long going, and we hope to see it continue. And then our other community support program was funded through the Southern Agriculture Exchange Network, which we've talked about previously on this call. And this was kind of is getting its feet under itself. We're calling this our pilot funding, just to have a proof of concept that these community liaisons are doing meaningful work. And so with these community liaisons, whereas the farm health connectors serve a county and don't really have any stipulations who in the county they serve, the community liaison is serving a demographic. And so with that, the person that we have currently active for this community liaison is with the Veterans Farm of North Carolina. And this individual is serving veterans across the state. So veterans that are now entering into agriculture. We are a pending request for a no cost extension for this program. We are waiting to hear back from the Southern Ag Exchange Network about if they are going to be able to honor that. However, we are still seeking funds for a program continuation for this, should it be available. The next group that I want to overview for you all today is our mental health services. This is definitely what I would say, and Roberta, you might be able to agree or disagree with this, probably one of the more time-consuming portions of FRSAN this past year. So like Roberta mentioned in her introduction, she serves as our triage counselor. And so essentially what this looks like is, as farmers have a mental health crisis or need mental health support, she will connect with the farmer to provide triage. So essentially this is immediate care while we wait for a formal counseling match to be made. So since July of 2023, so almost over a full year, Roberta has seen 38 farmers and 120 farm workers, and then has over 140 sessions, either with a combination of farmers or farm workers. So again, seeing a huge intake of people. And then another part of this service, so we have been able to provide counseling for people that request it. And again, these are farmers, farm workers, or farm family members that can request counseling services. And I'll go into it a little bit more in depth here in a few minutes about what the process of this session looks like and kind of what our hopes are moving forward for it. But counseling can be provided through one of two ways. Farmers can either be seen by a CareNet counselor. So CareNet is a counseling group that is, again, done with Atrium Health and Wake Forest Baptist Health. And funds were provided by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture to help cover some of these costs of services under CareNet. We also received funding from North Carolina Farm Bureau, North Carolina Farm Credit of the Carolinas to cover through private counselors. So if a CareNet is not close to the farmer, or a CareNet counselor is not available, or if the farmer has a relationship with a counselor they've seen previously and could no longer afford those sessions, we can pay for a third-party provider. Since September of 2023, with a combination of the CareNet sessions as well as the private providers, we've provided over 350 sessions to farmers, farm workers, and farm family members across the state. So here are the counties that have been served by triage and counseling access that we have record of. Some counties or some farmers have decided not to report their county information, which is again something that I'll talk about in a sec moving forward. We'll see some changes in, but as you can see, we're serving almost every corner of the state with this program, and it's been very successful, and we've had really great reviews from it from the farmers themselves. Are there any questions on this piece of it? Okay. So then what I would consider to be the second most time-consuming piece of FRSAN is our ability to train people in mental health literacy. So Maggie Denning, who is our outreach specialist at the Institute, and myself have received certifications to teach 6 different mental health curriculums. So regularly, we teach a course called Question, Persuade, Refer, Counseling Access to Lethal Means, applied suicide intervention skills training, a program called Safe Talk, and then youth mental health first aid and adult mental health first aid. And we also have certifications to teach the mental health first aid for specific communities, such as first responders, rural populations, and tribal youth. So a lot happening with that. Since October of 2022, to August of 2024, we've trained over 200 individuals across these 6 curriculums, either in a combination of in-person trainings or virtual trainings. I am regularly offering counseling access to lethal means and question, persuade, refer to extension agents as well. And that training gets uploaded into their learning management system, so they can sign up and then receive those credits that they need for promotions as well. So that has been really fun, and it's been a great way to really get to learn people that are in the communities, because we're not just limiting these trainings to agricultural providers or agricultural members. So for example, in this top picture right here, we have local community members, we have people that are working for the Veterans Affairs, we have people that also are crisis call line operators. And so truly just like a huge conglomerate of people that's been really fun. And I just have, these are the counties that have received mental health literacy training across the 6 curriculums. Again, we have reached most every corner of the state with this. And my personal goal is by the end of 2025 to have been able to reach at least one person in every county with a mental health literacy training. And so help me reach that goal by signing up for any of our trainings. I'll be sharing links with you all later today or later this week with how to register. So question, persuade, refer, and counseling access to lethal means are an hour and a half. And again, we teach those virtually once a month. Mental health first aid for youth and adults is anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. Assist is 2 full days. So again, that is a little bit more of a commitment. Safe Talk is 3.5 hours. And then we also have a partnership with the area health education centers to provide trainings for providers. And so those trainings are available on demand. Moving on into our resources. So we have the North Carolina Farm Helpline. This is a 24/7 crisis and resource line that is available to anybody serving agriculture. And we receive all types of calls on the Farm Helpline. One of the first calls that I took when I started at the Institute was from a farmer who had blueberry plants, and he had a mold on his blueberry plants that he had never seen before, and he didn't know what to do. So we ended up connecting him with a blueberry specialist with Extension. The very next call that I took at the Institute was a person who was having a serious mental health crisis, and he needed access to behavioral health services. And so the whole gambit of things takes place on the Farm Helpline. And so if there's ever any need for information or need for resources, please direct them to that number as well. We also are still maintaining the Farm Stress Resource Directory. Since I started, it has undergone several revisions where we now have over 150 listings in the directory. We have gone through and we have corrected any listings that were either no longer active or had a change in contact. And so that is currently living. You can access the most recent version by calling the Farm Helpline. There is also a digital copy on the NC Farm Stress website, and we are considering how we can also be sharing this information with extension agents to make sure that they have updated copies as well. There is also a veterans directory that is currently in progress. There's one that the Institute did several years ago, but again, working on revisions to that. And with the help of our community liaison for the veterans, we have over 500 resources that we are needing to go through and clean up and also organize. So if you know of anybody needing internship credits, I have a job for them if they're interested. The last piece with our resources that I really want to share is we have also updated our NC Farm Stress website. We are working on a domain change to that now, but that is coming soon. So if you see updates to our Farm Stress website, please share it out. We're really excited to be able to have a little bit more control over how frequently things get updated and what resources get posted. And then lastly, I just want to share with you, so as you all know, the Institute does place value in research and making sure that we are sharing the information that we are doing and the results that we are finding. So I've been able to share the work of the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network, as well as Maggie Denning has, at the North Carolina Agriculture Safety and Health Symposium in the spring of last year. We also presented at the International Society for Agriculture Safety and Health in Oregon over the summer. And then I was also presenting at the Rural Sociological Society at the end of the summer in Madison, Wisconsin, along with Dr. Schulman and Dr. Smolsky. And so, you know, we really are very fortunate to be able to have these opportunities to share the work that's going on and also be able to learn from other people that are doing similar work across the country. And so that's been very exciting. And so with that, program evaluation is ongoing. I am constantly collecting data from our programs, from the people that are taking part of our trainings, and we hope to see more formal research taking place moving forward with FRSAN. And so being able to, you know, get IRB approval and be able to do more formal data collection is in the works of that. So if you guys are looking for research projects and want something, some piece of that, please let me know. I'm happy to find ways that we can collaborate. And with that, we are also beginning planning for publications for some of our program evaluations. So are there any questions on the program overviews? Is there anything that you wanted more information on? Okay. So with that, I'd like us to move on into explaining kind of what we're seeing to be the future of FRSAN North Carolina. So this is a conversation that Dr. Spence and other members of the agrimedicine team have had, where it's getting very difficult to separate the other programs of the Agrimedicine Institute with FRSAN, because so much of it does overlap with farm stress. And so we're really looking at taking a farm systems approach, where essentially is the idea that, you know, the farmer's health impacts the health of the farm worker, impacts the health of the farm worker's family, impacts the health of the farmer's family, and not just physically, but mentally. And so we're really looking at integrating as much of these programs as possible and making sure that, yes, there is clear lines of differences, right, between respirator protection that happens at the Institute and farm stress. But at the end of the day, they really do have some gray overlining. The other piece that we're really going to start moving forward the rest of our meeting with is I'd love for us to develop a strategic plan with FRSAN. So much of what's been happening over the course of the program has been, you know, let's throw this at the wall, see if it sticks, and let's see if we get a good reaction from it. But you know, as we're moving forward with grant applications and as we move forward, you know, and we've done enough, we've done a lot. I want us to make sure that we're really pouring in our resources effectively, and also updating our programs to reflect the feedback and needs of the community. Like I said, whenever we started this meeting today, it's really important to me that our farmers are getting benefits out of these programs, and that, you know, they're not just things that make us feel good, but they're things that actually do good. And so that's kind of what the idea is as we move forward, that we really want to make sure that we're emphasizing. And so with that, here are some of the requests that we have been making at the Institute in terms of grant applications, people that have asked us if they could sponsor any of our work. And I'll kind of overview each of these, but this just a general list. So we need more funding for our triage and our counseling services. We had several, so we had to pause the program while we waited on the no cost extension. And in that time, we had several requests for counseling. We also had requests for people that were currently in counseling that wanted more opportunities for services. And, you know, we had to say, hey, we're going to put you on pause. Of course, we helped the people that were in immediate need, but we want to make sure that we can help as many people as possible. We also need more funding for materials for the mental health literacy trainings. Cost for materials for each course ranges in $3 for question, persuade, refer, and $50 for the assist training. That also does not include any cost of material or cost of the room reservations, travel if we're doing the training in person, or any meals that might be required, meals and snacks, because putting people in a room and saying, hey, we're going to talk about suicide, they might need some chocolate to snack on, right, and kind of boost themselves up a little bit. We also want to start offering continuing education units for people that participate in our programs, specifically for providers. Over the past year, we've offered several provider-specific events that had medium to low attendance, and part of the reason for that was, you know, they weren't going to be able to get any sort of professional development credit for being there. And so again, CEUs range in cost for each of the certifications for providers. We're budgeting about $50 per participant per training for a CEU. And so that is just something that we're keeping in mind moving forward that we want to be able to provide. Other pieces of this, so we want to be able to make sure that we can continue the farm helpline. We've seen great benefits to this, especially as a lot of our staff at the Institute are not always in the office. So it really ensures that our farmers always have a way to contact us, even if they're not in crisis. So with that, you know, there is considerations that staff that take the helpline almost never really get to clock out at the end of the day, because it's always the thought of, is the phone going to ring, right? And then also we do pay a cell phone bill for that. And so we want to make sure that we have the funds to continue that program. We also want to update the resource directory to make sure that it is a searchable database. Again, right now it lives as an Excel file on the agrimedicine servers. And then there's previous versions of it that are a booklet. But, you know, printing out booklets doesn't really allow us to be able to frequently update it in the way that the resource directory demands, honestly. And so we'd love to be able to explore searchable database resources. We have explored working with North Carolina 211, which is a partnership with United Way, to be able to upload our resource directory and have it available on NC 211. And this would benefit us twofold. One, we could have a searchable database toggled onto our website, so you don't have to access 211. You could still search it. But then if a farmer or a farm family member or a farm worker calls North Carolina 211, 211 has all of the resources that we have on the database as well. And so there is a significant cost to working with 211 and that we've been applying for in our grants, but we're hopeful that eventually we'll be able to make that happen. We also want to see more media and communication efforts to promote the use of FRSAN. Right now, it is the work of myself and Maggie Denning to be able to post on social media. And we're great, but in the days to days of, you know, everything else that needs to happen, sometimes a Facebook post might not always be the first thing we think of. And so that is something that we are also looking at. If you know of anybody who has wants to be an ag communications major and is interested in an internship, or you know, is interested in helping to be able to fund a position at the Institute for Media and Communication Specialist, we would love to talk with you about that. Susan, you left in the chat, what about GIS? So GIS is definitely something I would be interested in. It is not a skill set that I have. So if you know of anybody that could help formulate a GIS map that is user-friendly, both on a web platform and a mobile platform, I would be very interested to have that discussion. The other piece that, again, we're talking about is the whole farm health initiatives. Going back to earlier what I talked about really integrating a holistic health approach to our institute. We really, there are some things with the Agri-Medicine Institute programs that we need revisions to, such as certified safe farm, as well as we need a new rollover tractor for demonstration purposes. And so all of those things would help benefit FRSAN. I also put in here grief supports. So one of the things that has really been evident to me as we've moved forward in this is oftentimes the Institute or one of our partners will hear of a farm tragedy. Either somebody now has cancer, or somebody had a death on the farm, or there was an incident on the farm. And it's really weird to be on my end of the line saying, hey, let me shoot you an email saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, or I'm so sorry that you're sick, but if you need anything, let me know. And so we'd love to be able to formalize what happens at the Institute in terms of grief response by either sending some form of condolences to the family, either by mail or through the county extension agent, as well as some sort of gift card or meal voucher or something just to let them know that we're thinking about them in a way that's not as poachy as sending an email with our list of resources does. And so we also, moving forward, would love to be implementing some form of grief support groups for farmers or farm family members that have experienced either a death on the farm or other form of grief as a result of the farm. Other states are doing this and seeing great results for that. And so I'd love to be able to help fill that need here in North Carolina. The last one that I have listed is salary for personnel. So again, kind of going back to the media and communication specialist, we are also looking, again, more salary and more funds to help support our triage counselor. We also would like to see, moving forward, more, we would like to hire 2 resource specialists for the Farm and Ranch Justice Assistance Network, one based in the eastern part of the state and one based in the western part of the state. These individuals will be really responsible for the resource directory, as well as providing local information to farmers. Whereas at where I sit, serving the whole state, it can be difficult to make sure that every corner has the attention that it deserves. So having 2 resource specialists would really help with that load. And then we also would like to hire more behavioral health specialists on our staff to be able to help support the triage counselor. Are there any questions about that future support piece?
I apologize. I kind of think like a PI, but
No, I love it.
I'm trying to understand where your funding comes from currently and kind of what the status is. Like, you were talking about no cost extensions, but like.
So we, our program operated almost entirely off of grants, which, again, going back to our strategic planning, we really are patchworked together. So we have funding from North Carolina Department of Agriculture, which we are very grateful for. Southern Ag Exchange Network gave us some money for my position, as well as some of the peer programs, the community liaisons. And then we received money from Carolina Farm Credit, Corn Growers Association, and North Carolina Farm Bureau. And so it is truly a tobacco trust fund. And so, you know, when we're applying for grants, we are really trying to make sure that we are emphasizing the work that needs to be done, but then also we have to do certain things that match under whatever the grant application requires. And so, yeah, it's been so in all of these future supports, and it's something that Alyssa is going to be speaking about in the board meeting, we are pursuing a legislative request to receive a more stable line of funding, and FRSAN is included in that. But even that's, we know, is going to move slow. And so, we want to make sure that this program doesn't lose any of its steam that it's collected.
Yeah. Legislative funding would be great.
It would be. That's the real goal here, but
Right. Yeah.
are there any other questions about this?
Yeah, but Michaela, when you all get the legislative request formulated, could you share that with me, please?
Yeah, of course. Are you going to be in the board meeting this afternoon?
I'm not on the board.
Okay, gotcha. I will make sure that Alyssa shares that with you, Beth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'll make a note for that. Yeah, I think from what I've been told about that, is until it got passed through today, we haven't been able to share that out with any of our partners about the specifics of it. I think I can say that salary for personnel, I know, is on that request. Media and communications, I know, is on that request. And then the helpline and the resource directory, I know, are on that request as well. So again, just trying to stabilize some of these programs or some of these resources. Are there any other questions on that? So the other piece that I wanted to share with you all, just so that way you get an idea of what's coming, I talked about the counseling program being a big time commitment for us at the Institute. And I have this slide just as a visual of what typically happens when somebody calls requesting for farm counseling. So this has been our current program up until this point. And so what happens is the client contacts the Institute for Services. And then, so typically that's the person answering the farm helpline. That person then tells our nurse coordinator, tells our triage counselor and our director that, hey, we have a request. And then the triage counselor connects with the client. In every situation, the triage counselor connects with that client. From there, the triage counselor then calls back the FRSAN coordinator, so calls me to say, hey, these are the details of the case. They're requesting this type of counselor at this able to meet telehealth or in person, has this type of background. And then I do the work to find a counselor for them. Once a counselor has been identified, typically with several days worth of phone calls, I will then communicate to the triage counselor who that person has been identified as. The triage counselor typically makes some sort of introduction to the counselor to let them know, hey, I've been talking with them over the past few days. Here's what we've decided they need. And then a handoff is made, and then the counselor sends all invoices to us. As of this point, from how it has actually gone down, we have done very well sticking with this operating procedure, and making sure that every box gets checked. However, it can get messy and it can get very difficult to make sure that lines don't get crossed. Another downside to this is that the FRSAN group in North Carolina Agri-Medicine chooses the counselor for the client. And so in the event that the client doesn't like the counselor that we've chosen, they don't really have the skills or have the knowledge on how to find a better counselor. Also, the client and counselor relationship is not necessarily strong, and we often see the triage counselor sitting in the middle of this even after the warm handoff is made. Either the counselor won't return the client's phone call, so the client will call the triage counselor, or some variation of that situation. And so again, it can just get messy. And then the last piece to this that I think is really indicative to how the program has been going on is it's reactive to a crisis and not preventative of a crisis. So typically we don't receive calls unless the farmer is in active mental health crisis and in an active state of they need help immediately. So we are often scrambling to make sure that they are receiving the help that they need. So moving forward, after a lot of discussion and working with the Institute staff, as well as talking with Roberta and talking with other states, we've decided to renovate this program moving forward. And so you will see a more formal announcement and more formal sharing of this in the weeks to come, especially with this no-cost extension being awarded. But moving forward, and this is actually a model from the Illinois Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. Other states follow this model as well. So there is a lot of data and a lot of other people having gone through this and a lot of proof of concept with this. And it will be more proactive. So what will happen now moving forward is that farmers can still call the farm helpline, but they will be directed to fill out a registration form. And in this registration form, they're going to, again, identify who they are, their county, their best form of contact, an emergency contact in the situation that, we need to get in touch with them and can't, requesting for counseling services. After submission, the counselor will then receive a list of available counselors that have been identified by the Institute, as well as a set number of vouchers. So they will be able to call any of the counselors on that list and redeem a voucher for a counseling session. Then again, they will be able to identify on that registration form if they need immediate support, in which case we will still connect them with the triage counselor. So the triage counselor will still be made aware of these calls. They will still have that access to an immediate phone call, but the farmer or the client themselves will be able to have a lot more autonomy over when they choose to get counseling and who they choose to get counseling from. And then with that, the counselor then will submit invoices to the Institute as well as the vouchers as normal. We see this being a lot, and in other conversations with other states that have done this, we've seen this being a lot more streamlined approach, be beneficial not just to the staff that are organizing it, but also to the farmers, because we see this as a way for a farmer to scan a QR code while they're at a conference, request a voucher, and then if they're sitting at home one night and they say, hey, I think I should need counseling, they can do it right then and there and they can make those appointments. It's not going to necessarily have to be, I am in immediate crisis and I need help like it's currently been. So again, be on the lookout for a more formal announcement of this. We're really excited to see how this goes. And again, we'll make changes to it as necessary. Are there any questions on that before we move on to the breakout sessions? Okay. So if y'all have any questions, please feel free, or any comments, please feel free to reach out. So what we're gonna,
sorry, Michaela, I'm slow.
No, you're fine.
So the triage, so Roberta,
Yeah.
you're the person, right? So you're going to be less kind of the middleman unless there's a crisis that you need to respond to immediately. Is that kind of what this is saying?
Yes. So Roberta, if you want to respond.
And thank you, Susan, for because I felt like there would be questions about that. So there's a lot of counselors involved, and that sounds like, why do we have triage and counselors? And that sounds messy in itself. What I have found in my work, and then we've applied this broader with agromedicine, is that when someone calls, as Michaela said, they're usually in crisis right then. So there's a need for stability and at the same time build a quick rapport. That means somebody with a farm background who speaks the language and someone who knows, who's a therapist or trained mental health counselor, and someone who is pretty seasoned and can make those quick assessments. I have found that's how I work, and that seems to work. So this is a lot of trials, what has worked over these years and what is clients tell me is effective, and also the primary care providers that I've engaged with that have told me also it's helpful. So in the moment, occasionally I get a farmer, for example, that I'm hearing something more than the typical stress, suicide ideation. there may be an actual mental health thing in the background.
Mhm.
And it takes a trained, and I would say probably licensed individual to make those quick judgment calls and know when a primary care or psychiatry needs to be involved, and then to talk with the farmer and help them make a decision for themselves that's informed, and then do the warm handoff to the right people that would be appropriate for this. So all of that's happening in that triage thing. That's above and beyond what the counselor would do when they get triaged over to. So I tell people I see myself sort of sitting in the middle and serving as an anchor to stabilize the system. It could be the farmer, the farm, and the family, sometimes the farm workers, depending on what the call is, and pull in the right people and give them the right information so that then they get the best outcome situation. Does that answer that, or did you have
So
a
how's it going to change? Like, that sounds like how it's working now. The problem is, Roberta, is you are so good and people trust you, and it's hard to move from you to somebody else once they establish that relationship with you. So I understand the issue. So what's going to happen in the future?
if I may say, my image, the image that I carry here is, if I am able to actually connect with the counselor that they're being triaged to and give them a brief background as far as, hopefully also they're going through these programs at agrimedicine,
Right.
giving them a background in the culture. But then I can give them these are the things to think about. And if you go on vacation, or if you're having trouble connecting back with them, you are allowed, with the permission of the farmer, to connect back with me if I can serve in that spot again.
Yeah.
At least that's kind of, go
Yeah,
ahead, Mikhail.
and that's one of the things too, Susan, just to get to your point. A lot of those things are happening currently, but we don't have a formal registration process for counseling services. So we go on faith that, their verbal agreement would hold up in case something does happen, right? To be able to contact. Also with this system, there with the previous system, there is no data being collected on which counselors are seeing which patients. And so again, not in terms of, we don't want to do any HIPAA violations, right? But if a situation negatively happens, comes up, as of right now, I have no way of being able to say, okay, John Smith is being seen by Candy Apple, and they've seen this many sessions over this period of time, right? And having nothing to really back that up. And then also, we talk about Roberta sitting in the middle. Our counseling team of counselors have, up till this point, have not really had a great orientation to the Institute and an orientation of who Roberta is, and what she can do for them. And so that's something that moving forward, we are also going to be, and I didn't explain this, but moving forward, we're also going to be requiring our counseling team to partake in the AHEC modules that are available to them. So again, that's benefiting them. They're going to be getting CEU credits, but they're also getting a more formal understanding of agriculture. And they are also going to be introduced to Roberta formally, so that way that relationship is developed between them. But then again, being able to have a clear understanding of agriculture means that, the counselor can't just assume that the farmer is going to call them to make a follow-up appointment, right? Which is what a lot of our counselors are assuming. So then the farmer then calls Roberta saying, I haven't had a counseling appointment in 6 months, right? And so essentially, we just want this restructuring to formalize our collection of information, making sure that we have all of the required information that we need from a legal perspective, and any sort of legal protections. It helps streamline Roberta's caseload. Whenever we have 4 calls into the helpline, she has calls coming in from farm workers, making sure that they understand it's not always going to be high anxiety calls or high level calls. And then also, again, helping the counselors know and helping kind of adapt to more what they're used to in terms of referrals and making appointments. So yeah, Beth, you had a question?
Yes, just wondering if Illinois has seen any hesitancy with doing a triage report form on the front end.
Yeah, so the triage thing is unique to North Carolina. So that is one way that we will differ from Illinois. And I think it will be in terms of benefiting us that we do have that triage counselor because we can provide that immediate support. And again, with this new system, triage will not necessarily be a requirement for the farmer. If the farmer wants to jump straight into a counseling appointment, they can do so. However, with our current system, triage is a requirement. And so, you know, I'm interested, and I've been in contact with the woman who runs that program at Illinois. Her name's Casey. And so hopefully, you know, we will both be able to learn from each other and what works and what doesn't. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to double check with the registration process. So recently my husband went through an emergency at his job where he hurt his arm, and everybody was sort of like, you need to do this. And, you know, his supervisor told him to do one thing. The main admin assistant told him to do something else. And it was just a total mess. And really what it ended up needing to be was him filling out this online form, taking it to the student health center. And he was just like, why do I need to fill out an online form while I'm hurt?
Right.
You know, so that's the only thing I'm worried about, is just from this experience, if people are in a mental health crisis, are they really going to have the bandwidth to fill out a form and, you know, go through it that way? So that's just my only concern.
That's a really great point, Stacy. And one of the things that I've thought about a lot, because I agree, you know, there are situations where you just don't have the mental, especially people experiencing mental health crises, have the bandwidth to make an appointment yourself and to call a person yourself. We will never at any point say you have to do this on your own, right? If you only have the ability to call the farm helpline and say, I need help, we will revert back to that old system where I will help find the counselor. We will immediately connect to Roberta. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. When it's every case and whenever it's multiple cases in a week, that's where it just gets tricky. And so with that, you know, we will never be at any point where we will turn away somebody that needs that assistance. And I think Roberta agrees with that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And will there be some sort of like follow-up where somebody will have contacted you and then you will know that they actually contacted a counselor? You'll know that they took that next step?
Yeah, so how we've been envisioning this is you can request the vouchers, and the vouchers have an extension or an expiration date of 1 year, because that's typically what our funding goes through, right? Is 1 year availability. And so we won't follow up unless they submit the voucher. And then at this point, now again, I'm not saying that is not likely to change, because it might. So at this point, we won't follow up until the vouchers are submitted. And then we're actually working, one of our nurses has agreed to help us with this follow-up process, where either myself or the nurse or Roberta will do a formal follow-up at the end of, or after a period of 3 to 6 months of them submitting vouchers, just to see if the program is working for them, and make sure that, you know, if there's anything that they need further, we're connecting them to our resources, like our farmer to farmer program, or like our women in ag, or like any of our trainings. There's something in the chat. Thank you. Thanks, Juan. He had to jump off. So yeah, and so again, there might be some opportunities for follow-up for people that didn't submit vouchers, but we will explore that as it comes up. Yeah, that's a great question.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other questions before we move into the breakout rooms?
I'm gonna question, why currently is there so many more counseling appointment in your numbers than triage?
So triage typically is one or two times
Oh, okay.
out,
So
but we've had sessions that we've had people that have had upwards of 15 sessions
okay,
per individual, and that's another piece too. So with these set number of vouchers, they will be able to reapply for vouchers again if you are in a financial situation where you cannot afford counseling. However, we also know that at some point, the farmers do need to have, and the clients do need to have buy-in. We are happy to counsel and to connect them to people that can help them register for Medicare. We are happy to, explore sliding scale payments for our a lot of our counselors do offer sliding scale payment plans, where they will have the opportunity to resubmit for vouchers if they need them, but then also be counseled on how they can also start paying out of pocket in the event that funding does run low again.
Michaela, if it's okay, I wanted to give some extra information. As far as the number of sessions, I think, Susan, you were talking about earlier, those the first time I meet with a farmer who's in crisis, typically a therapist will see a family or an individual for an intake, about an hour and a half. It's the longest session they'll have. They usually schedule the next week. In this case, what I'll do is pretty much see them as much as they need that first week to stabilize them. I could see 3, maybe 4, but I think 3 is about it. And I give them my cell phone number and we just stay in touch until things are starting to calm down. And I give them information about counseling process. This is what you can expect for counseling. These are your options. Would you like it on the phone or on a, whatever. And also making those assessments, as I talked about a little bit earlier. So in the numbers that Michaela put up earlier, you see the number of farm workers. First, I'll say this: I never do actual therapy sessions with farm workers. I don't have the language skills. I can speak it, but I can't understand it. I will if it's needed and there's an interpreter. If we need to do that, I'm absolutely open to that. But generally what I do is I get called if there is someone has died on the farm and we need grief counseling, and I assess while I am giving grief counseling. And I make sure they get to the right group that's serving that area, who know if there is a behavioral health person needed, they know who's available for that, and the other pieces, who's the primary care, who's the psychiatrist. So I will help in that way. So the numbers you see for the farm workers, if I show up on the farm and there's 20 workers I am speaking to in a group, I will tell you 20 people received that information, that educational piece. But no therapy takes place there. With the farmer or farm families, again, if there's 3 times I meet them for an hour at a time in a week, that's the numbers you're seeing there. But they get triaged to actual more, how do we say it, evidence-based counseling sessions that uses some sort of therapeutic modality.
Thanks, Roberta. Are there any other questions? Okay. So for the sake of time, and just because we're such a small group today, instead of breakout sessions, we're going to do these conversations as a larger group. And I have 3 questions, and I'll explain kind of how I've set this up here in a second. But I have really three questions that I want us to discuss for this. And this is really going to help us be able to plan or help formulate our strategic plan moving forward about what we need to focus on and how we need to do it. So the first question that I'd like us to discuss are what are the three services and resources that we've talked about today that we should prioritize as we move forward with the Farm and Ranch Trust Assistance Network. And then the next one is what skills or strengths do you have personally that can help contribute to these objectives? And then the last one is what feedback do you have on current programming and operations? What have you guys seen boots on the ground or within your networks that either has gone really well or hasn't been as successful that we should be working to improve? And so how I've done this, I don't know if any of you guys have ever used Slido, but it is an interactive polling that will, one, help us to be able to collect this information. I'll be able to download this at the end of our meeting today and have it for our note-taking purposes in this. And so if y'all are interested in trying this with us, you can pull out your phones and either scan this QR code or you can go to slido.com and punch in the code. And then I'll be able to see at the top like how many people are on it. But on this screen, it'll give you a list of all of our programs. So don't worry about remembering them all or any of the ideas that we've discussed with the future funding. And then it'll allow you to click 3 and then rank them in order from 1 being the most important to 2 and 3 being like not as important, but stuff we should still focus on. And if you have any trouble getting onto it, let me know and I'm happy to help troubleshoot. And if y'all just want to give a thumbs up or in the reaction or something whenever you've finished this. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Stacy.
So I click them, but then nothing happens. Like I'm not totally sure.
So it automatically updates. And so whenever you hear, and I'll pull it up just so way I can talk you through it. So if you click 3, you can either scroll back up to the top and rearrange them by order of like greatest to least. And then if you scroll down to the bottom and press send, then it submits your answers.
Okay. Like I've clicked one, but it didn't move it.
So it won't move the PowerPoint screen until you press send.
No, it didn't move it on my screen.
Yeah, it's not user friendly. I had to keep, being persistent before it took it.
Got it.
There's a little square. I was having trouble too until I realized there's like a little square of dotted lines that you have to put it in that little square.
Oh, so I'm moving it.
Yeah, you have to move them up.
That's wild, Stacy, because I'm able to click them. Okay, we're learning together.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second then.
Yeah, no, you're fine, Susan. We're learning together. I wanted this to be a
That's the best part about what we do, is that we're always learning things together, and
Right.
we're all, you know, we're all helping each other.
Right.
Okay,
Awesome. Awesome. So it seems like the farm helpline, the community liaisons, and the mental health trainings are things that we should be most focusing on, with farmer to farmer, women in ag, grief support, counseling, media, and so forth. Is there any comments that you guys want to make about what you chose or why you chose it?
Yeah, Michaela, I see the benefit of the farm helpline for those who may not be interested in reaching out directly to someone, that is a comfort zone and has some level to it where they don't feel like everyone is discussing their issues. So I see immense value in that.
Awesome.
And with the mental health literacy trainings, that this year has superseded immediately following Hurricane Florence for what I'm observing with farm stress. And I never thought that we would see a situation where we were worse than Florence. And I think that making sure that those that interact with the farm community have the resources and the training to be able to address folks in crisis and offer resources, I see tremendous benefit to that.
Thanks, Beth. I appreciate that.
In the course of some other projects, I've come across and interacted with a variety of farmer-to-farmer organizations. For example, Operation Spring Plant, based in Oxford, is an African-American farmers organization. Continuing to network with these organizations. And a great example of what you folks have already done is the Veterans Farm folks. But expanding your networks and interactions, and some of these might be relatively small, informal organizations, but providing access to them, to the resources and programs that Agro-Medicine Institute has, I think would be something to consider for the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I appreciate that.
So I said the voucher program, a lot of these are so linked, it's hard to say three because each one has three components that
Right.
is really important. I mean, it's like the helpline is only so helpful, but if they can't access counseling when they call, they can't, if y'all can't provide much help, then it's not, how helpful is it to be able to call and get somebody? So I think being able to follow through with them actually getting into counseling is really important.
Yeah. So I know I limited it to 3. Were there 2 others that you wanted to click but just didn't have the space for it?
Well, I don't know if there's any that I didn't want to click.
We want everything, right?
We want it all.
Now you understand the struggle, Susan. Applying for. Oh, sorry.
You're fine. I'm wondering, I'm not up on what I do know, what I've seen in the literature is when the programs that are coming out, and we're all trying to get everything and anything, but the evaluations lag for reasons, for valid reasons. So I'm wondering, as these things happen, are there all these programs, is there any way that because as Susan said, they kind of rest on top of each other, some of these do. So if the hotline is it effective in the moment, or is it effective when it helps the person reach it? You see what I'm saying? If there's any information evaluation coming back, it's kind of what we need. And I don't know that there's any real good stuff out there, any good data on it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Roberta. And it is something that moving forward over the next year or 2 that we really want to be focused on is evaluation and publicizing our evaluations. So, we are, this is something that we've been discussing, and I'm currently in the planning stages for getting IRB approval to be doing follow-up calls with people who have taken advantage of any of our services, to understand if they are useful? If so, how useful are they? And were they only useful for a short period of time or have long-term effects? And so very good point in that.
Yeah, I would also see the directory as completely related to the hotline. If you don't have the directory, when you call the hotline, they don't know what to say in terms of referral. So
absolutely.
It's not as interesting. It is kind of fun, but it's critical to that being effective.
Absolutely, Susan. We just have one big Venn diagram, and so trying to separate it, it's like a plate of spaghetti, and sometimes, and it's like you can find it individually, but all right. So the next, this is another Slido, and this one allows you to type in, so maybe might be a little bit more user friendly, and it should update on the screen that you did the previous one at. It should update your page where you don't have to input the QR code again. So what skills or strengths do you have that could help contribute to these objectives that we've outlined today? And I'm going to preface this, but if you tell me that you have a skill or a strength, please be expecting a phone call from me about it. Awesome. And whenever you are wrapped up, if you want to do a thumbs up again, that would be great. Thanks, Beth. Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, Roberta. All right, are there any of these that you all would like to elaborate on? The other follow-up question that I have for you all, so I know not all of our members of our advisory board were able to be here today, and I'm planning to share this recording of this meeting with them. But you know, I'm not new to FARSAN, but I'm new to learning a little bit more about what this advisory board is, and I want to be sure that I'm utilizing you all in a way that's most effective for you, but then also effective for you know, FARSAN and for the program. Are there any skills or strengths that you know of other members of our board having, or other ways that you would like to be utilized within your capacity as an advisory board member?
Michaela,
Yeah, Beth.
as you all start fleshing out some of your long-term strategic plan things, happy to start looking to see where may be potential funding opportunities.
Awesome.
and how can we think outside of the box from those that have supported, because we all have a vested interest in making sure that farm stress is addressed appropriately.
Yeah. Thanks, Beth. That would be amazing. I would really appreciate that. And we can get in touch and some of the avenues that we've explored previously, and what we've done and what we should be doing moving forward. Are there anything else? Okay, so then we'll move on to my last Slido for you all, and then we can put it up. But I'd love to hear what feedback you have on our current programming and operations. What are some things that we're doing well? What are some things that we could be doing better, especially moving forward? And
I'll start. I'm just learning what's happening around the region of the United States, the Southeast region. And I might have more to share about that later. But North Carolina is amazing, and just how it's like comprehensively addressing this and really gathering resources. And I think the leadership you bring to this is just incredible. So I think we're just, if every state was like North Carolina, it would be so easy just to link to what the states are doing. So thank you then. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Susan.
I wrote in there the assist trainings. I loved seeing that those are being offered. I took a couple of those myself here in the Charlotte region and thought they were really great. So I'm glad to see they're being offered for extension agents and other folks in our state.
Yeah, of course. And Stacy, I'm going to put in a plug. So the assist trainings require 15 to 20 participants in order to be able to be put on. So if you all know of people that want to be assist trained, we are happy to do so and organize a training for a specific region or group. How we have it set up currently, so assist and safe talk are the only two trainings that have to be taught in person, and that's a requirement of the Living Works who organizes that curriculum. So what our plan is Maggie and I are going to rotate across the state. So we taught one in Raleigh over the summer. We're going to teach one at the Institute office in October, and then spring of next year we'll go in the western part of the state, and we'll kind of rotate in that order where we'll do central, east, and west. So we are looking for somebody to host us in the western part of the state in the spring, if you know of anybody that would want that.
And so is that a train the trainer?
It is
or that's
community
the
training.
assist training.
Yes.
Community training. Okay. I don't know if Cabarrus County is considered west. I kind of think of us more as central,
Okay.
but would be happy to try and help if
Perfect.
if Cabarrus County would be a good spot for you all.
Yeah, that'd be great, Stacy. We'll have to touch base about that. Awesome. So I see on our feedback, we have continued outreach and development, peer-to-peer, organizing a need, protecting ag, providing support, coordinating and building network with program, continuing excellent work. Great. Is there any comments that you guys would like to make about any of these feedbacks? And I don't know if, again, if you haven't been in a meeting with me before, I love constructive criticism. Like if you have something that you're like, Michaela, stop doing this, or hey, you could do this better, I want to know. So don't feel free not to mince words if you did, but okay.
So there's a lot of things happening like peer-to-peer and stuff like that. I think the evaluation will be so critical. I mean, and I don't know, how are y'all gonna connect with an evaluator to do that, or like how are you thinking about that?
So I think in my perfect world, I would love to connect with an evaluator on that, just for the sole fact that time is a huge factor and how we can do evaluations and how frequently we can do them. The problem with that and getting an evaluator is the funding piece of that. And at this time, we don't have the funds to hire an evaluator, but so it'll probably be a combination of the agrimedicine team that will be doing that evaluation process.
And I wonder if, oh gosh, what's her name on campus that does all of our ERS stuff? Susan?
Oh, Meredith.
Meredith, yeah. I wonder if she would be willing to just read it over, or, you know, because that isn't evaluation sort of like her specialty.
It is.
So I don't know if she'd have the time, but that is somebody within our system that does evaluations.
Yeah, and but my concern with Meredith is she's so much on the reporting end.
Oh, I see.
I wonder how much time she has to provide for kind of evaluation technical assistance.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I have to think really hard about who has resources. Our other excellent evaluator is Autumn Gwynn in 4-H, but she has like 19 projects so she's working on. So
Right.
it's just like, it's so needed. People are so overstretched.
Right. And I do think there's a certain amount of irony of stressing somebody out over research on stress. And it's just something that I think that we are very aware of whenever we're asking people for things. It's like, don't overstretch yourself as we talk about people that are overstretched. But so is there any other feedback? Okay. If there's ever anything that again comes up either after this meeting or do you like to take offline, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to discuss that. And so with that, we're going to start wrapping up this meeting today. I'll give you back a little bit of your time for the day. And so I just want to talk about next steps. So I'll be sending the notes and the recordings from today's meeting out to you all in the advisory board. And so feel free to keep this for your records. As well as if you know of any other people that would be good members for this advisory board, please have them reach out to me. Like I said, I'd love to utilize you all in a way that you're not just placeholders, but you genuinely have an impact on the program. And I want to make sure that that's conveyed. The second piece of this, so I'm going to begin working on an initial draft of the strategic plan. And with that, I'd love if we want to form like an informal committee for that, and just, you know, if any of you guys are interested in taking and participating in that strategic plan drafting and working through that, please reach out to me. Because again, I'd love to get y'all's feedback in that. And then the last piece of this, we're going to be holding our next meeting sometime in the spring of 2025. I'm trying to keep these in line with the Board of Partners meeting. I think Alyssa is scheduling the next Board of Partners meeting for February. So just be on the lookout sometime early spring of 2025 for some form of communication from me for our next meeting. And so with that, I have my contact information on the screen. Like I said, I'll be sending out everything to you all. And if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to stay on. But with that, I think I have wrapped up all of the information that I know to give at this point. So thank you all again for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Beth, are you good?